YouTube, vinyl community, Beach Boys fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about the Beach Boys' third album, Surfer Girl, released through Capitol Records on September 16th, 1963, where it peaked at number 7. A fine showing from the guys who spent 56 weeks on the chart, holy moly. Did not come out in the UK until 1967, where it also hit number 13, so very, very good on that one. This is also the first album credited solely to Brian being the producer. Which is, I mean, he'd been doing it the whole time, but by this point, they were like, all right, fine, we get it, you're great, so yeah, okay, do it. This album, for me, is where the classics start to come in. Surfin' USA definitely brought a lot of new textures and new confidence. This album takes it to a whole new level, especially because Surfer Girl was a bit older at this point, so it was a song they had around for a while that grew really well. But the depth on this album and the sophistication is just leaps above the first two records and really continues Brian's streak of mastering the studio, figuring out instruments, figuring out layers, seeing what this does, what that does, and it's becoming a master of the studio. And a lot of the guys were still playing on this album too, which is fantastic. But this cover for me is just such an eye-catching classic shot. I love the surfboard. I mean, these pictures were all dating back to the first album, but I just love the color choices on this. I love the layout with the square, the text, the font. It's such a cool looking thing, man. But I also love how they say surfing music up top, because that was now a thing. But yeah, by this point in 1963, I mean, the Beach Boys were really, really taking over. Surfin' USA was a humongous hit for them, and from there, national exposure was in front of them constantly. So they were touring nonstop. You know, they were still in the station wagon going out on tour, doing the smaller shows and playing larger shows at this point too, but they still had that hungry fire of being a young group, but they were mastering the studio so well, and their voices were gelling even better than they had before. I mean, the first couple of records, it sounded great. This record really proves they can do it more and more and more. So, for me, this album is not meant to be overlooked. It's something very special in their discography because while a lot of it obviously is surf rock, the tracks where they do show their prowess, it's just unbelievable to see the depth, how only within a year at this point, they were already making leaps and bounds in terms of what they can do and sound effects and different instruments and vocal layering and all that. So we open up with Surfer Girl, which is an incredible masterpiece of a song. It's something Brian had for years at this point, but the growth on this thing, the mesmerizing harmonies, the atmosphere, the depth, the emotion they pour into it, it's brilliant, it's youthful. The whole track screams summertime magic, and for me personally, you know, we all know Brian is obsessed with Be My Baby. I'm obsessed with Surfer Girl. This song for me has always been one of those, how the hell do you write a song like that moments, because it's just magic. I mean, it's one of those songs where I've never gotten tired of it, ever. And there's a fantastic version of it on the Sunshine Tomorrow CD. I think it's the last track, where they do like this stripped back lo-fi version of it, which is a little more downtrodden, which is also just, it adds another punch to the gut of how much emotion this song they can wring out of it. Unbelievable track. The vocals, Brian's solo bit in the middle, the ending, I mean, the whole track is just so well constructed. It's a fantastic piece of pop music. It's unfriggin' believable, and I'm glad they named the album after it too. Catch a Wave, the next track on here, another gigantic leap forward. We have harp played by Maureen Love on here. The harp adds such an element of, it adds that cascading sound that the wave would make as you're surfing through it, kind of like the guitar solos at the time do. For me, I definitely get that feeling of the wave creating that harp-like sound as it's like enveloping you as you're surfing through it, which of course I know all about surfing. I don't. I mean, come on, it's such a great sounding song. The cymbal splashes, that's another technique they haven't done yet before either. The cymbal splashes also represent exactly that. Water splashes, like falling into the water. It sounds like the wave. So not only do you get alternating vocals between Mike and Brian, I like the words. I know Mike wasn't too keen on they'll eat their words with a fork and spoon. Over the years he said he would change those lines, but I think they're fine. I think it's a great song. Much more denser production on this track. The Summer Moon, this one, or Surfer Moon rather, this song for me sounds like a summer place, but if the Beach Boys did it. completely. I mean, listen to A Summer Place and you'll see where I'm going. But it's a gentle, slow dance number. Nice string arrangement. So on this album, we're getting a lot more strings, which is another element of Brian growing, where he's like, what can we do to add to this song? Ah, strings. There we go. So not anything much to talk about there, but I like the piano. Good harmonies on it. South Bay Surfer. This one is really heavy drums that just punch along on this one, which I think is really, really good. Honky tonk piano. Sort of a marching chant. It reminds me a little bit of Just Got My Pay. A little bit. I'm using that sort of lightly. But the cool hand claps are back. I like the hand claps. Doesn't really strike too much new ground, but a decent little song that's not filler. The Rocking Surfer. This is a sort of cartoony instrumental. Speaking of filler, this is, I mean, it's not bad, but it's led by a sort of cartoony organ. The guitar solo is decent, but definitely something they had to fill in the space. Not too much to write about there. Little Deuce Coupe. I mean, what can you say about this classic? I mean, the harmonies are all over. Mike's lead vocal is so articulate and cool and smooth. The car language is so detailed. Like, the gearheads who heard this song must have been like, whoa, they're singing about intricate, nerdy things that only I know about with my car. I mean, that must have been mind-blowing to hear this kind of stuff. I love the piano. I love the rhythm. It's just an upbeat, crazy good song. And that drum intro, I mean, you know, they used to do this classic thing where they'd be on stage and say how they built a song. And they start off with Denny and the drums, and he'd do the drum thing. And then he'd go through each member. And then eventually Mike would say, we step up to the mics, and it comes out like this. And they'd sing Little Deuce Coupe. It's one of those songs where it shows, like, how effortlessly cool they can sound because they knew they were confident and they knew they were making a good song. And I love that feeling. Side 2 opens up with In My Room, which is an absolute masterpiece. I mean, this album has both Surfer Girl and In My Room. I mean, oh my god. And this song, coming off of the last couple of albums, we had like The Lonely Sea, and this further on down the road, we get Your Summer Dream on this album. But In My Room is a song that always strikes the people in the world who feel like they're alone and they don't fit in and they're trying to fit in, but they know they really can't because they're, you know, we're all weirdos. And it's one of those tracks where you hear it and you're like, you instantly know what he's talking about. I mean, Rivers from Weezer wrote In the Garage, which was the exact same thing as In My Room. But I mean, there's a world where I can go and tell my secrets to in my room. Like, what a brilliant line. You have your safe space. You have your place that only is meant for you, where no one can touch you, no one can hurt you. You know, if anyone's ever been bullied in your life, you know what that's like. To go somewhere where no one can touch you and you're completely cool and you could be all right. That's an amazing world to exist in. And so for Brian to have this world, you know, being on tour, making so many songs now, he's 3 albums deep, you know, TV appearances, radio appearances, he's starting to feel the pressure. And I think at this point he just moved out as well. So he's got his own place. And, you know, what a beautiful, beautiful track. There's, you know, the guitars are calm. The vocals just fall into each other like they're from the heavens. It's a very deep track, but a very wow moment on a pretty light album. Hawaii. I love this song. I know a lot of people don't dig this one, but I love it. I love the upbeat, rip-roaring tempo this song has. It's a song about a surf contest. I mean, it's catchy, it's rocking. I really like the killer harmonies. Brian's got the classic falsetto. I just love the happy vibes on this one. It's a head bobber the whole way through. I love the live version from the concert album, and every once in a while they bust it out again, but it's just a good, upbeat song. Hell of a lot of fun. For me, screams early Beach Boys. Our Car Club. This is a Surfer's Rule. It's a genuine fact that Surfer's Rule, and I can't get the track order right. So, sort of a call and response on this one. The pre-chorus chord changes are new for them. It's a bit of a dynamic there, which is nice. But Denny's vocals are brilliant. I like hearing him sing surf stuff. You don't get a lot of that, so it's cool to hear him do that. But Brian's falsetto is classic early Beach Boys. And now we go to Our Car Club, which is a really unusual one, and again, shows where they're going to keep progressing. And Hal Blaine plays the drums on this one. It just sounds so full and rich. It's one of those songs where, like, that chugging rhythm is because of the dense layering of different instruments, and Brian was really figuring out how to make that sound really, really good. It's an underrated early gem, and a song that if you haven't heard this album, this song's gonna be a standout for you. I love the sort of manic drums in times, but it's just a fun song about starting a car club and what you got to do when what kind of dues they'd pay for you, and the whole thing is this, early 60s muscle car guy stuff, I guess. But it's a really great song. It definitely shows what they were going to do next in terms of depth and song construction and all that. Your Summer Dream, what a brilliant, underrated masterpiece. I mean, the that lightly strummed guitar, Brian's got a solo vocal, which is a little bit rare. It's a dreamy, love-filled, warm track. We can't tell really if it's a sad song or a happy song about love, which he would further develop over the next couple of years. Brian was the master of making sad songs about happy things or happy songs about sad things. He perfected that, and bands have been following him since. But brilliant song. I love the pacing. I love the atmosphere. It definitely is one of those moments that kind of escapes you from the rest of the album. Sort of up there within my room, if you will, in terms of depth that the rest of the record doesn't really dive into. And then Boogie Woody, which is a complete opposite of Your Summer Dream. Happy, upbeat, boogie-woogie piano, bringing back that carnival organ from the early days, the early couple albums. And the piano is a lot of fun, classic 12-bar blues type of stuff to fill up the LP. So you get a couple of filler songs on this one, but really, it's not a bad album. It's definitely one of those growth albums where you hear them changing and developing and becoming the Beach Boys that we all know and love. So here's the original inner sleeve of the time. This is right before they did the blue sleeve with the pictures on it, which like the Beatles would have. A really gorgeous mono copy of this thing too. Again, when it comes to the early Beach Boys stuff, it's one of those things where I feel like people take it for granted because we know what comes next. And I'm saying that as someone born well after this album came out. If I was around when this album came out, it would have been like, holy moly, they've gotten better and better over these last two albums. Hindsight being what it is, we know what happens next. We know about Pet Sounds and Sunflower and Holland. We know where they go. So for a lot of people, I feel like these earlier albums are looked over because we know how much better they get, but we don't appreciate these stepping stones to get to where they got to, if you will. So I adore this album. It's not one of my favorites, but that being said, they have so much to choose from, so picking a favorite is very hard, but the songs on here that stand out the most: Surfer Girl, Catch a Wave, In My Room, Your Summer Dream, Hawaii, Little Deuce Coupe. I mean, half of this album is absolute blasting classics. So for this one, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, which is a bit above what Surfin' Safari was, only because the depth they were going into at this point was much more explorative, and it just shows how they mastered that studio and how they grew as musicians together. You hear it on this album. So for that, 8 out of 10, Surfer Girl, The Beach Boys. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Giggens. This has been Surfer Girl, The Beach Boys. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves and surfs up.